Okay.
I'm nervous to watch you.
Hi everyone, I'm so glad y'all got to make it. How was your drive here today?
Great.
Yeah, short?
Yeah.
Good. Anybody get lost?
No.
No? Okay, awesome. Well, my name is Gigi and I am going to be the facilitator for this group today. Before we get started and we introduce each other, I know none of you have met yet, I just want to go over a quick outline of what this group is about and to make sure that we're all on the same page. Of course, if you have any questions, let me know. But this group is specifically for women in ministry. I am going to sit back to see you all a little better. This is a group that supports women in ministry because there's many challenges, unique challenges that women face in general in life. And coming in ministry, and from what I hear, you're all involved in the smaller churches, which has its own set of unique challenges. We're here to be able to build some support for each other. I want to start off with some rules. The first and the most important is confidentiality. I want to make sure you all know what confidentiality is. It means what is said in this group stays in this group. And so what we talk about here, you can talk about with each other in this room, but don't take it outside to be able to protect the other person. Please be on time. As you know, this group starts at 6:30 p.m. every Wednesday, and so please make sure to be here on time to respect others' time as well. And then I want this to be organic. I want us to be able to chat. So if you want to share something, you don't have to raise your hand and wait, but I would like for us to be respectful and wait until the other person is done speaking. And then lastly, cell phones. If you could all please make sure to silence your cell phones. Have you all checked to make sure it's silent? Okay, cool. I have my cell phone here. That way I respect the time that you guys have, which is an hour. And so we're going to respect that. We're about to get started. And does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Well, let's start off by introducing ourselves. Before we introduce ourselves, I do have this right here, and this is in case I need to take any notes of what you guys are saying because I want to touch back and the conversation to go toward that route. So just so you know, that's what it's for. If you don't feel comfortable, you can make sure we can chat afterward, and I'll dispose of this. I won't be sharing with anybody. It's just for the sake of conversation. So I would like for all of us to introduce yourself, what ministries you're currently involved in, and how you are currently feeling about ministry, and why. So I'll start off first. I know I'm a facilitator for the support group, but I'm also involved in ministry at my church. So my name is Gigi Gomez, and I'm currently involved with our finance department at my church. I feel like it's something that is doable for me in the season that I'm in, and so it's been good for me. And now it's up to you.
My name's Jessica, and my husband's the pastor of a church, and I lead with him. It's been an interesting learning experience, but a privilege to be able to do for the Lord.
Cool. Thank you, Jessica.
Let's see. Next, I'm Michelle. And let's see, I'm in charge of guest services in our church, which means greeters and hospitality and parking, and sometimes I help in kids' church.
Okay. And how are you feeling about ministry?
Good. I'm looking forward to Easter.
Awesome.
I am Katie. I wear a number of hats at my church as far as ministry goes, but I would say my two biggest ones would be I assist my pastors. I'm their assistant, and then I lead the communications department.
Okay.
And how I feel about that, it can be busy, but I enjoy it.
Okay.
My name is Polly, and I work in the finance department, and I work in Kids Church in our church. The finances is easy and fun. I love that kind of stuff. The Kids Church is a little bit more challenging. it definitely makes you think through things a little bit more and strategize a little bit more. It's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, okay. So, I'd like to touch base on challenges to start off. What are some of the challenges that you have faced this? Let's start from here to a year ago. What are some of the recent challenges you have faced? It could do with anything, but of course ministry.
I just recently started working with the kids, and that was challenging because my kids were all grown up, and the activity level of my house is way down. So I'm not used to that level of activity and sound.
Yeah.
And so I was fairly traumatized the first time. And I'm recovering because I feel like that's what the Lord wants me to do right now. And it's getting better. So yeah.
Okay.
So I think I actually take the level of the whole place down a notch.
Yeah.
Because I don't go that.
Yeah.
I don't go there.
So, I have one question. What do you think is making it better?
Oh, just my expectation, I think. And my resolve to be there. So I'm going in there intentionally with a good attitude, and yeah, that's all.
Okay. Thank you.
I think the most difficult part is time, having enough time to be able to meet with everyone that wants to be met with, and to have time for your family and your businesses and what have you, to have time for all of that and be able to prioritize the right time to meet with people when that need is there. That's the most difficult, because there's things pulling you in different directions. So.
Yeah. So I noticed that you ladies are nodding your head almost as if you have experienced the same thing. Am I getting that right?
Yeah. It feels like, at least for me and probably for some others, it feels like you're almost always on. You don't have like necessarily time off. It's like I always have to, be mindful of what you're doing for church, or am I doing this preparing for Sunday, or things like that. So it consumes your whole life.
How about you, Katie? What do you have to share about that?
About time management, I have had to learn that skill, and I've had to learn it quick. Yeah, I guess that kind of ties in with burnout. I used to do that. Like I'd work hard, and at the end of the week I'm just like, I can't even think, I can't make decisions, I just need everyone to leave me alone. So I've had to learn how to manage my time a lot more wisely in order to be able to be, I guess, function in that leadership position and kind of help support those that need the support during the week.
Have any of you experienced burnout?
Yeah.
I think, there's seasons, I guess. It's like I will think I can't run at this pace anymore, and I will get to have, a season of rest will come right after that. And so I think there's times where, I can run really fast and I can get a lot done, and I am able to have a multitasking schedule, and there's sometimes where the Lord says, no, you need to focus here, and this is what you need to do, and you need to rest.
Yeah. Anybody else have experienced burnout?
I think there's some seasons where you are great with just going full on in ministry and everything, but then you also have some seasons where it's like, I need a break, but it's hard to find a break, especially in a small church, because there's not enough people to step up and take over if you take a week off or anything like that.
Yeah. I think what I'm noticing here is that being in a small church, I know it may sound kind of obvious, but having a small church makes it harder to take time off, which means that in essence you have to be more diligent about the time you do give to ministry. to be able to have a weekend where your brain actually works. Right? Right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So let's continue the conversation about time and time management. What have you found that works for you?
I'm a list maker.
Okay.
So I make lists and then prioritize them and put them on my calendar in the way that they need to be, to, I don't know, fit around my kids, my husband, and everything else in the schedule.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Lists. Okay. Cool.
I put everything on my calendar. I mean, I have to put everything on a calendar, even if I'm going into work or staying home from work or somebody's doing a drop off at my house. I have to put it all on my calendar. If I don't, I'm just gonna be messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely understand.
I also put everything on my husband's calendar too, so so that him and I are in sync in our schedules moving forward. And so if I manage our family calendar, that makes things smooth for us all. Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
I'm also a lister,
Mhm.
but I find I need to like, okay, this is the set of things I'm gonna get done on this day. This is the set of things I'm gonna get done on this day, because my lists get very long very quickly and it's overwhelming. So I have to kind of make them like mini lists for day by day instead of week.
That's great. Yeah.
I like the sense of accomplishment when you get to check off things.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
Yes. Have any of you ever done this with your list where you accomplish something and it's not on your list?
And you put it on.
So you put it on just to check it off.
Well, I think part of that's just so I know where my time went, you know, because if I just look at it, it's like, okay, that didn't take that long. It's like, well, there I did more than that. There was other stuff in there, so I kind of know where my time went.
Yeah. So, what other challenges have you faced? I know, Katie, you mentioned time. What else?
I think raising kids
Mhm.
that are growing up in ministry and having them grow up in ministry, but also grow up in the world. Like that, my kids go to public school, and so there's an idea of what a pastor's kid should act like, and so there's these standards that they're held to in the church and outside of the church, and so that's been a challenge. I'm working through, just trying to understand, you know, like I didn't grow up like that, and so
Yeah.
just trying to figure out, like, okay, how are they feeling? How is this working for them?
So, I just want to clarify by standards. Who are you talking about as placing these standards?
Well, we as parents have standards for them, of course, but then there's things that, like, kids at school expect them to act a certain way because of
Right.
our profession, or even in the church, they're expected to act a certain way because my kids think that they're expected to have better behavior than other kids, but they're just kids, and so they don't necessarily have better behavior.
Yeah.
They're pretty average.
Okay, I see. How do you feel like your kids are doing with it?
I think we have a lot of discussion about it, and that's why we put them into the public school system, so that they would have guardrails to bounce off of as they're learning to love the Lord and be out there. And I want them to know that we love them, and that we accept them. Jesus loved them, even though he already knew all the mistakes that they would make. So if they're in the principal's office, or if they're coming to see me on a Sunday, you know, it's the same. It's sort of the same difference. But Jesus still loves them, and they still need to walk through that whole process of repenting and changing their actions and those kind of things. And so I think they're doing well with it. Now there's been seasons where it's been hard, but they're growing. They're growing. They're learning too.
Yeah. Okay. Has anybody else experienced what Jessica has been sharing with raising kids while in ministry, or even in the church?
when our kids were younger and still at home, we were in youth ministry,
Mm.
and when they were teenagers. So that was difficult.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think people probably did hold them to a different standard, which definitely wasn't reality. And even the parents of the other teenagers that we had in our group would expect our kids to be the ideal. And I think that they would be critical sometimes if they weren't.
How did that make you feel?
Well, it was hard enough raising teenagers, you know, so it's just like one more thing on the pile to have people criticizing you at the same time.
Oh man,
Yeah,
that sounds challenging. Yeah.
but they're all still alive, praise God. Mostly married, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Now, Katie, I don't believe you have any children, right? We did touch base about this.
I have animal children.
Animal children. Okay. So this wouldn't particularly pertain to you.
No, I wouldn't say so.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to share, Polly?
For me, I guess when you're talking, I came at it from a different perspective. I was a Christian school principal's daughter, and so my dad was incredibly harsh on me and my brothers and sisters, and so we were set to a really high standard by my parents.
Oh, wow.
And so that was difficult from the child's perspective.
Yeah.
But I guess one of the things as a parent myself is I guess I'm constantly wondering how people see me as a parent, because I have some of my kids who are helping in the ministry, and then I have one that just can't seem to get his life figured out right now. So so there's some of that too, and you kind of wonder if you've been a failure as a parent sometimes.
Yeah. And I want to go a little deeper with this. Have you felt like anybody has shown judgment toward you as a mother at church?
I don't think so. A lot of it's just me. But, in the Bible it says that leaders in the church should be able to control their own house, things like that, And so, you start looking at yourself, and am I even really, should I be here because of that?
I remember that exact verse really beat us up when we were going through a time when our kids were not doing right and we were in leadership. And it's like, okay, if you can't even get this under control, then how can you lead? And yet we did, and at one point we did pull back from that ministry, not from going to church or doing other things, but I know other people that are pastors where their kids were not doing right at one point or another, and it would have been tragic if they would have pulled back from ministry. It would have affected a lot of people. So, I don't know, I think if you're going to elevate someone into a position and they're in that kind of season, I probably would say maybe wait a little longer. But if you're in that season and you're already in ministry, it would be a loss for us, for the rest of the body of Christ to miss out on what each part brings, even if everything isn't perfect.
And I think we're all people. We all have issues. We have things that we're working through. Whether you wear them on your sleeve or you don't. Everybody's walking through things, and I think that it's good for people to be vulnerable and to, like, even as a leader, to say, hey, I'm walking through this, because then people realize, oh, they're believing the Lord for these things too. They're walking by faith, not that you just wake up in the morning and everything's perfect and everything goes right. You're able to be related to. And so I think that that's a good thing, to be vulnerable. Not that I say air out everyone's dirty laundry, but that it's good to be vulnerable with people and let them know, like, hey, I am struggling with this, I am walking through this. And so, I don't necessarily think that, and especially in the church, there should be a safe place for people to come and have people come up and say, okay, we're gonna walk with you through these things, you know, or I've done that before, or you know what I mean? And be able to help out.
Yeah. I noticed that there is a connection here between what you have already walked through and what you're walking through. And even, I'm not saying you're going to, but your kids are getting older, and so
Yeah.
these kinds of things, I don't know if this is me just making up, please correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes you wonder is this going to happen to my kids? You know, and I'm not saying your mind will dwell on that, but it's almost like, am I doing it right?
Yeah.
Am I doing it right with my children? Am I doing it right with my family? Am I doing it right with my animal children and my ministries at church? Am I doing it right? And that can really be burdensome if we continue to dwell on that. I want to ask that scripture about leaders, if you want to be a deacon, is that what it says?
I think it was
An overseer.
An overseer, your house may be set right. I want to ask the rest of you, what do you guys think regarding this subject?
I feel the same way a lot of the
Yeah.
times, like, man, if people came into my house, I'm totally not qualified. And so, I don't know. There's only been one time where someone got to see in, like the phone call while we're yelling at one of our kids or something like that, so that was really embarrassing.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that verse, all the other criteria in that verse have to do with your personal behavior. You know, it's just that one that has to do with your kids' behavior, which they do have a free will also, and there's a limit to how much control you actually have over somebody else's free will.
Yeah.
You know, so that one can't be the final say on if you're qualified to be a leader.
Well, and the Bible also says to train them up in the way that they should go, so if you've taken the time to train them up in the way that they should go, and they're choosing to not go the way they should go at the moment, then
Right.
you've done what you were supposed to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So, at least that's what I tell myself when my kids are.
That's true.
Yeah. Holly, do you feel like you can be vulnerable in the church about things like this?
To quite a few of the people in my church, yeah.
Are you?
To some, there's some of the women that I actually, get to spend a little bit of time outside the church. But, you don't really want to talk about things like that in church. So, you have to be able to meet with people outside the church in order to really share anything personal like that.
May I ask why you don't want to talk about those things? Why did you say that phrase, like you don't want to talk about these things at church?
First of all, there's usually not enough time.
Okay.
But then the other is, you don't want to see somebody, you don't want somebody to see you having an emotional breakdown in front of the whole church. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and especially for a leader, if you're a leader and you're just a mess in front of the church, like, are they really that, are they really going to lead me? Are they any better than me? Or, it's not that I think I'm better than anybody, but, I have to have something to give,
So, let me go a little deeper with this. If a leader at your church were to break down like that, what would your thoughts be toward that person? They were to just share the same thing that you're going through, let's say, so there's a point of relation. What would your thoughts be?
I guess it would depend on the situation. I mean, if they're leading something and all of a sudden they just have a breakdown while they're leading something, that might, they might be too stressed or something like that. But, you know what I mean? There's an appropriate time and a place to do some things. But if you're just like, having a conversation while you're at church, then, it's understandable. And,
What do you ladies think?
Oh, I've been that person
Mhm.
that breaks down. I remember one instance in particular, while I was in youth ministry and I figured out my sister wasn't walking with the Lord, and I just broke down. We're teaching these kids all of this, and I like was bawling my eyes out because I thought my sister was going to hell, and the leader had to minister. Like, I was one of the leaders, but one of the leaders had to come minister to me in front of the kids because I was such a mess. And
Yeah.
so, but I needed that at that time. And so I think the Lord, I don't know, I didn't feel any shame or anything in it. I needed to be ministered to at that time. And so I'm in the house of the Lord. If I need to be ministered to, if I'm falling
Yeah.
apart, there's someone there that the Lord has sent to minister to me.
Mhm.
And so I don't know. I mean, not that I was excited that all the youth kids saw me bawling, but I mean, that's who I am. I can't help it. I couldn't change it. It was the ugly, nasty cry, you know, but you can't turn that around very fast,
I
so.
think that's good for them to see. I mean, they can see that this is a safe place,
Yeah,
but they don't have to have it all together all the time,
Mm.
yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
you're leading by example.
Yeah.
By losing it.
Yep, yep.
Mhm. And in essence, it's what you shared with her, what she shared with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I recall a time several years ago where I was overseeing a few ministries, and one of my team members in the middle of service, she led the screens, you know, the song lyrics and all that. One of my team members, I had said, can you please move forward, go to the next one, because we were at a different section of lyrics. And that person stood up and said, I can't do this anymore, and walked out of service in the middle of lyrics. And this is right before, at that time, I used to share the announcements and the tithe and the offering. That was right before I had to go up and do that. And I was there doing lyrics, and I happened to be coordinating as well. And it shook me up so much that I just started crying. And I remember I was crying, I was doing it, I was crying, I thought, did I do something? What did I do? And now here I'm crying, and there's men in the booth with me, a man, and another one who's in my team, and then another guy who's in my team who happened to be in service, and he noticed the delay, and he's very technical, very detailed, who turned around and looked at me, and at this point I'm crying. And he just looked at me, he just went like this, like, do you want me to go back there? And I just said this, and at this moment, my pastor comes up, and he's doing the last part of it. I'm wiping my tears away because at this point, it's game time, announcements, I will be happy and perky, and have you come to join this. And that's exactly what I had to do. I went up to him and I whispered real quick, this team member just left, said they can't do it. I'm on screens, can you close? And my pastor said, yes, I can. And at that moment, I had to fight, do not cry, do not cry, do not cry, while I'm trying to read and trying to be perky all at the same time. And it was such a challenge. And I went back to the tech room and I cried the rest of the service. I was there and I just cried because I could not stop because I felt so bad. And it was a moment where I was very vulnerable because you don't just, it doesn't, even though we're in a church, it doesn't feel right to show that side of you.
Right.
Because you should have it all together. Because we should, if something happens, we should be able to fix it and it'll be okay. And I wonder, because I've wondered this for myself, is this something that we feel like the church is holding us up to because of our roles? So sharing about how we have felt at the church, and Paul, you mentioned earlier, there's certain people that you have opened up to here at church, but you don't really, we'll talk about those heart issues out until you're outside of the church. Same people, but just outside of the church. That seems to be your support circle, right? I want to talk about that a little more. How supported do you feel by people who are within the church? This can be a very vulnerable subject.
Sometimes it can feel lonely. If it's something, I don't know, I guess some things are harder to share. I'm okay with crying in front of people, but even recently I've walked through some health situations that have been hard to share with people and let them in on. And so that's not something I want to stand up on stage and tell the whole congregation. And so there's select few people that you allow to come in, and people that are actually going to speak the word to me, I guess. And so I get that's probably the hardest thing is that situation in particular. It's like, oh, okay, well, how I want to let people know because there's a reason why I'm not able to do things, but then on the other side, it's like, oh well, I don't know what they're going to speak about what's going on in my life either. And so that's sort of like, if I keep it inside, then, well, not inside, in my immediate circle, then I know that at least faith's being spoke about it and not just any words are being spoke about it. And so that makes me feel protected at least.
Yeah. So, if I am hearing you correctly, what you're saying is that what you're walking through right now, there are a small group of people that are helping, that you feel supported by, but in essence, there's still some sense of isolation because it can't be something you just open up to everyone about.
Yeah, I don't share, I guess for lack of a better way to say it, all the gory details with everybody. They might know a little bit of what's going on, but not everything. And so, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it would be healthy to share everything sometime. But I'm not ready to do that right now.
Why?
For the words, for one, and I don't know. Some part of me feels like if I announce it as a whole, that I'm in agreement that it's okay to be there. And so it's like I don't want to say, well, this is who I am and this is what I have or whatever. I don't want to do that. And so I guess that part is what makes it difficult, you know.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.
I think that's okay though. I mean, even Jesus chose his intimates. You know, he had the bigger group that was following him, and then he had his intimate friends that he shared things with. So, yeah, I think we can choose which things we broadcast to masses and which things we hold a little tighter.
Yeah.
Well, I am a very private person. I don't like broadcasting all the behind the scenes stuff because I'm like it's like my private life. I kind of want to keep it private. So even I have people that have said, hey, yeah, if you need to talk, just give me a call. But I don't take them up on that a lot because it's like, okay, well, this is something that I'm going through, and I have a handle on it, and I want to kind of keep it private. I don't like talking about my private life.
So these people that you would share with, are they from your church?
Most of them, yeah. And then I have a good friend of mine that I talk to. We kind of talk about our young adult issues together.
So do you feel like you have a good support circle?
I would say so. It's just I have trouble utilizing it.
And in essence, I see that because earlier you mentioned about your heart and how you will allow things to stay in here. So bringing this in here when you don't want to deal with it, having others deal with it won't be easy either. But you have one friend that you said you can share this, what's in your heart with more?
Yeah, I definitely don't share everything with her because I'm not sure how strong a Christian she is. So there are a lot of things like ministry related where I'm not sure she really understands it. So yeah, I I kind of filter what I talk to her about.
So this group at church, do you feel like you can share more things with?
I could probably stand to share a little bit more, yes.
You think it would be helpful for you?
I think it may, even just as an accountability thing, or like, hey, I'm working towards, dealing with things better.
Yeah, okay. Do you think they would receive you well?
I would say so.
Okay.
I've been friends with them for